Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you.
What you're about to watch is a sitting Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, getting asked one simple question, over and over, by members of both parties. Did you authorize the military to arrest American citizens on American soil? He never answers it. Watch how he handles that, and watch what it tells you about where power actually sits right now in Washington.
Do you think political allegiance to Trump is a requirement for serving our nation, either in uniform or a civilian in the department?
I'm incredibly proud, as are millions of Americans.
No. Not today, Hegseth. Yes or no?
Congressman, you know what a silly question that is.
But silly enough to warrant a very straightforward answer. Yes or no?
We all support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
You know what? I'm not going to waste my time anymore. You're not worthy of my attention or my questions. You're an embarrassment to this country. You're unfit to lead. And there's been bipartisan members of Congress that have called for your resignation. You should just get the hell out and let somebody competently lead this department.
Mr. Chairman, do we not have any decorum in here?
Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Gentleman yields back. And I would urge everybody to remember and maintain a decorum suitable for this chamber with their further comments. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Dr. Desjardins.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later. You've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's the job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate. There's like a cat fight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
Let's get into what actually happened there. The central exchange, the one that runs through almost every lawmaker's question, is about a yes or a no that never came. Did you authorize troops to detain protesters? Hegseth's answer, across multiple rounds of questioning, was essentially this. They're there to support law enforcement, and if someone throws concrete, they deserve to be arrested. That is not an answer to the question. The question was about authority, legal authority, command authority, not about whether rioters deserve consequences. Every time a congressman or senator tried to pin that down, he moved the frame. You answer a different question, confidently enough, that the original question gets buried in the noise. That is not accidental. That is a practiced technique, and he used it repeatedly. The moment that actually matters most in this entire clip is when Senator Desjardins finally pulls a partial admission out of him. Hegseth says troops can temporarily detain and hand over to ICE in cases of self-defense. That one sentence matters because it confirms that detention authority exists, in some form. The argument was never that it doesn't exist at all. The argument is about scope, about trigger conditions, and critically, about who authorized it and under what legal framework. None of that got answered. And the fact that it didn't get answered in a congressional oversight hearing, which exists precisely to get those answers, that is the actual story here. The Signal app moment, the one Senator Duckworth raises, is worth slowing down on. Hegseth shared classified operational information about military strikes in Yemen on an unsecured commercial messaging app in a group chat that included his wife, who holds no security clearance. That is not a procedural slip. That is a breach of the classification system that the entire military chain of command depends on. And she doesn't lead with it as the headline. She lists it as item 1 in a longer sequence of failures. Aircraft losses, drone losses, a $1 billion campaign against the Houthis, that by the Secretary's own admission did not restore commercial shipping through the Red Sea. She is building a cumulative case, and the cumulative case is simple. This is a pattern, not a one-time mistake. The Confederate base naming exchange is the moment where the hearing shifts from policy into something more personal, and it lands harder because of that. Duckworth served at Fort Rucker. She flew helicopters. She was shot down. She lost both her legs. When she says she would rather be associated with Mike Navasel, a Medal of Honor recipient who flew toward enemy fire after already being hit, than with a Confederate general who killed Americans, that is not abstract. That is someone speaking from inside the institution that Hegseth is supposed to be leading. And the argument she is making underneath all of it is this. You don't understand what this military is, what it stands for, or what it costs. Now the "except for the Bible" line, that is the single most telling moment in the entire clip. Senator Desjardins invokes Secretary Esper's memoir, a primary source, written by a Republican, appointed by Trump, describing being ordered to shoot protesters in the legs and refusing. Hegseth's response was to dismiss books as unreliable, then carve out the Bible as the exception. That is not a rebuttal. That is a signal, to a specific audience, that evidence and documentation operate on different rules for him. When a Secretary of Defense treats a first-hand account from his own predecessor as less credible than his personal denial, that should concern anyone, left or right, who believes accountability requires a shared standard of truth. Then look at the general, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, when Duckworth asks him directly whether the military is incorporating domestic law enforcement expansion into its planning. His answer was essentially, "I'm not aware of it at my level, but I can't speak to what others might be doing below me." For the top uniformed officer in the United States military, that answer is either genuinely alarming or deliberately evasive. There is no version of that answer that is reassuring. The congressman who told Hegseth to get the hell out and called him an embarrassment, that moment will get clipped and shared. And depending on where you sit politically, it either reads as righteous frustration or as proof that these hearings are just a circus. That split reaction is itself the point. These hearings are increasingly designed not to produce information, but to produce content. Clips that confirm what each side already believes. And when oversight hearings become content farms, the actual oversight stops happening. Getting a defense secretary on record, about what orders he gave, about what authority he extended, that is not a partisan issue. That is the entire point of the committee. What this hearing ultimately documents is a gap. A gap between what Congress is legally entitled to know about how the military is being used on American soil and what the executive branch is willing to tell them. Troops in American cities, detention authority over American citizens, cyber tools potentially aimed at Americans participating in protests. These are not theoretical concerns anymore. They are questions that, left unanswered, tend not to stay quiet. They come back, in courts, in future hearings, or in events on the ground that make the theoretical suddenly very real. So here is the question I'll leave you with. If a Secretary of Defense cannot give a yes or no answer about whether American troops have been authorized to detain American citizens, what exactly is the oversight system supposed to do about that? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want analysis that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what's actually happening, subscribe. This is what we do here, every time something important goes down. And right now, a lot of important things are going down.